Assalamu alaikum and welcome to The Right Fit, right here on IBN TV8, where it's all about you. And I want to thank you, my dear viewers, sponsors, guests, for being with me for the last 9 years. Yes, IBN started on the 28th of October 2005. And the first program of The Right Fit, the first episode of The Right Fit, occurred on the 1st of November 2005. So we say thank God, Alhamdulillah, all praise is due to God for allowing us to continue the program. And this program is geared towards developing issues and ideas that can help people to fit into society, to be productive citizens, to be peaceful citizens, and to understand what Islam tells us about how we should be. Because according to the Quran, Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, came to us to perfect morals. And if we look at his life, we would see that he was indeed a most kind man to his family and to others around him. And in fact, when we pray, one of the supplications or du'as we make is to ask Allah, who is the source of peace, to grant us peace. And you may find this strange, especially when there is so much war and so much aggression and so much of negative happenings, all being ascribed to the religion of Islam. So we need to go back to the source, we need to go back to the Quran, we need to look at the sunnah or the practice of the Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace. And like all prophets that came throughout the ages, they always practiced peace. So my dear viewers, today we are thankful to God yet another time to have the show. I have been away for a little bit because of a virus that affected my joints. So I am even more thankful for the use of my joints. And I pray for those who are ill and who may be recovering from this very difficult illness. Now, today we are going to be talking about men. You know, normally we talk a lot about women. And in fact, we would say, you know, for International Women's Day, we make a big thing. On the 8th of March, you will have the network of NGOs and other bodies, you know. We march along the Brian Lara Promenade and we have booths and so on. And we showcase what is happening with the women. Now, on the 25th of this month is the International Day Against Violence Against Women. But did you know that there's also a day for men? Yes, if you look at the Express, I don't know if it came out in the Guardian, but in the Express, Wednesday, 19th November, way down in the back on page 71, there was an article by the Ministry of Gender, Youth and Child Development highlighting International Men's Day. And the person who inaugurated this is Dr. Jerome Teelucksingh, I guess with the help of others. And so this is is it the 13th year? 15th year. 15th year, or 1999 it started. And he is here to talk to us about creating a space for men. Creating a space for men. So let me welcome Dr. Jerome Teelucksingh, who is a lecturer at UWI, University of the West Indies, and he is a lecturer in history. So that would be in what department?
It's in the history department in the Faculty of Humanities.
Faculty of Humanities in the history department. He's on a little break, and so we are very happy that he was able to come to us today to be my guest to discuss creating a space for men. You know, Dr. Teelucksingh, in my dealings with women, you know, with the survivors of domestic violence,
right,
when we are talking about it, when we have our outreach programs and so on, the men will come up and say, but sister, what is going on with the men? And so I would tell them, I say, well, unfortunately, our resources can only deal with the women who are by far the most battered amongst humanity.
Correct, yeah.
you know, but that I firmly believe that something must be done about the men, you know, because we do not live as individuals. We are part of a society. The male is most important in our society, and we need to nurture our males and even rehabilitate them when they go wrong.
Correct.
So, once again, welcome. Let's go. Now, what do you think, what would you say is being a man? What does that mean?
It's a very difficult question because the answer is so broad.
Yes.
Being a man could include what you wear, what your occupation is, how you speak, right? How you talk to persons, your body language, your culture, right? So it is sometimes difficult to say, you know, physically I'm a man, but culturally you might be influenced in a different way.
Yes.
So it is very difficult, especially these days where you see men are wearing earrings,
Yes.
you know, and they are becoming, you know, they even have the term metrosexual,
Yes.
you know, where
yes.
men take such importance in their face and the way they look. So it is very difficult, you know, to say what exactly a man is. The man from 50 years ago or 100 years ago has changed dramatically.
Historically, there has been a great change.
Correct.
A great change.
Yeah.
So, what then would be the normal expectation? What is a man? What does someone expect a man to be?
I feel in today's society, we expect a man to be caring. We expect him to be the traditional breadwinner. We expect him to be in the home to have a certain say.
Yes.
We expect him to be a good father, a good son, right? A good grandfather,
Yes.
a good nephew, right? So we expect the man to have multiple roles.
Leader.
A leader too in society. He's also an employee, maybe of a boss, or he is a boss over
Or employer.
employees,
Yes.
right? So the man has multiple roles, and I believe society needs to understand that. That the man is not just operating in one dimension.
Yes.
He doesn't just have one role. You know, he has so many different roles, and so often his son or daughters expect him to perform these many different roles.
Yes, and to do all well.
Correct.
To do all well.
Yes.
So that this might be such a burden on the man, or such a pressure, I should say, on the man to fulfill these expectations that he may feel a little bit inadequate, perhaps.
He might feel overwhelmed. He might feel pressured. In fact, I feel sometimes that this might contribute to some men suffering from nervous breakdowns,
Yes.
or even getting physical symptoms, physical diseases like maybe heart disease or high blood pressure, right, or a stroke, simply because of the additional pressures and burdens and expectations that society expects from them.
So what motivated you to inaugurate International Men's Day?
A few reasons. Firstly, it's my dad's birthday, 19th of November, and I see him as a role model in the community and within the home. And secondly, you might remember on the 19th of November, 1989, the strike squad,
Yes.
our football team,
Yes.
lost to the United States,
Right.
1-0. And that inspired me because it was a time when it brought the country together.
Oh, yes.
It crossed gender barriers,
Yes.
race barriers, geography was crossed.
Socio-economic.
Everything
Yes,
was crossed.
everything, yes.
And the country was red.
Yes.
We were all behind this strike squad. And then after that event, we all went back to our small cliques,
You can call it a slump.
a slum.
Yes.
There was this sudden decline
Yeah.
in patriotism,
Right.
nationalism, unity.
Yes.
And I felt we should remember that day. And a final reason is that I've noticed that over the years, men have been stereotyped, men have been branded as negative, evil, bad, contributing to social problems, not being part of nation building. And I felt that this public perception wasn't just confined to our country or the
Yes.
Caribbean, but it was global.
Yes.
And I felt that there was a need now to try to reverse this image and reverse this role and let men realize that they have potential and they have a role to play in society.
Yes.
You know?
Certainly. And they have a duty.
They have a duty.
They have a duty. But you know, perhaps the negative thoughts about men is due to the fact that out of all the rapes, you have 99% of the perpetrators being men.
Correct.
You have men who are involved in abuse, sexual harassment. You have sexual exploitation. I have a list here, you know.
Right.
You know, and you find men are involved in paying prostitutes, in killing females in videos, certain videos.
Right.
They are going to strip clubs. They are renting, degrading pornography. They are writing and performing material that is showing that they hate women, they're misogynists.
Right.
They do slam poetry and music with lyrics that are very degrading to women. They objectify women, they enslave women as human traffickers. Well, no wonder that we have a negative idea about the men,
Yes,
you know. But on the other hand, you have some wonderful men,
Right.
you know. So I guess the whole purpose of International Men's Day is to highlight the good in the men, and we can't do without the men.
Correct.
The men will provide a certain kind of perhaps historically we would say they are the leaders, they are the ones who would be the heads of households,
Yes.
and so on. And so they are very important in the socializing process.
Correct.
And also in the world of commerce and so on, as entrepreneurs and as all of those things,
Yes.
positive things in the society.
Yes.
So you have placed International Men's Day on the international scene,
Right.
and you have 6 pillars you want to share with our viewers. What are the 6 pillars on which this International Men's Day would rest?
Yes, firstly, it's to promote positive male role models. It's to celebrate men's positive contributions in all spheres of society. Thirdly, to focus on men's health. A lot of time men feel they are invincible.
Yeah, and they don't take care of themselves.
They wouldn't go for the annual checkups.
No,
you know.
yes.
Fourthly, it's to highlight discrimination against men, because sometimes men might suffer racial discrimination or religious discrimination, right, or cultural discrimination. Fifthly, to improve gender relations and promote gender equality. And that is
That's
something,
a big one.
it's very challenging, very difficult, because often many men might not want to hear this word equality. Many men might not want to hear the need to improve gender relations. They always feel that, most men feel they might be superior.
Macho.
The macho image, right? So they wouldn't want to listen to men, right? They might not want to listen to their sisters, mothers, wives, girlfriends. So I'm hoping that we could see if this could be not just a challenge, but a reality.
Yes, so
Right.
that you could reverse that trend.
Correct.
Yes.
And the final pillar is to create a safer, a better world, a happier world. And the only way we could do this is if we allow the other 5 pillars to materialize, to become a reality.
Right, very
Right.
good, very good. So, you know, we have said what we think is a man, because it's such a wide-ranging thing, we can't really, you know,
Define it.
constrict it to a little definition.
Yes.
But let us see what are the attributes and behaviors of men that make them a man.
Right. From the society's perspective, the society expects a man to be responsible, to be independent, to be part of a conversation, to take the lead, to be knowledgeable. They expect the man to have leadership skills.
Yeah.
They also, funny enough, expect the man to be good in sports, any sport.
And to be able to fix things around the house.
Fix the car, plumbing,
Yes.
something is wrong with electricity, you know, they expect the man to be in that, right?
Well, he has a brawn and hopefully the brain to go with it.
Yeah. Well, historically and genetically, it's
Yeah.
supposed to be so.
Yes.
And I think this is what society expects from the man. But I feel that the roles have changed over the years, and the women now are playing a more important role in the home and the society, right?
Do you think that is because people want a better quality of life, and so the woman is going out to work?
I feel it is partly a better quality of life, but you see, because of the high cost of living,
Yeah.
It is very often difficult for a family or even a couple to survive on one salary if you have mortgage
Yes, yes.
or you're
yes.
paying loans. So I think it's sometimes out of necessity,
Yes.
right?
And so the whole dynamic has changed.
It has changed, and I think that is why there are so many kindergartens and preschools, because the woman is no longer confined to the home.
Yes, and the main caregiver.
Correct.
Yes. But you know, we also expect a man to be in charge of himself.
Yes.
He must be able to take up his clothes from the floor, you know, rather than leave it there. He must be able to manage himself in the home in terms of who will use the bathroom when and so on, things like that,
Right,
you know.
right.
And you know, very often we find that a man may be portrayed as a person just sitting down looking at TV while the woman is slaving around doing all the household chores.
Yes.
And that is a source of concern amongst many women.
And it's funny you say that, because even in some of the comic strips, like Blondie,
Yes,
or if you remember Handicap,
yes,
right? The man is portrayed as a slacker,
yes,
very casual, and the woman is taking the lead.
yes. It's true. That's a motor. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, that is true. So that you find now the children are getting an idea that perhaps this is the norm.
Yes.
Because the men are training their sons, they're training their daughters to expect this in their lives when they become adults. So how are we going to correct that is one of the questions we would have to look at, you know, because children learn by their role models.
By example.
They learn by example. They observe. When you think something is not registering on them, they are taking it in and internalizing as part of their schema.
Correct.
Right? So that we find that because the women are now out there, we find that they expect the men to help cook a meal. They have to help with the chores, put in the wash, or put it to dry, or hang it out if you don't have a dryer. They expect the man to be able to help take care of the baby.
Yes, yes.
Is that unrealistic?
No, that is part of reality, because if the woman has too many burdens, she will feel pressured,
Yeah.
and she will also, you know, become angry or disgruntled or so.
And then quarrels ensue, fights and so on, and so that you find that the marriage starts to be under tremendous strain.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, if the marriage is under strain, what can happen then is a whole number of negative things,
Yeah.
which is not good for the family and which is not good for
Trinidad and Tobago.
for the society.
Yeah.
Yes. So, in terms of, well, if we look at men amongst themselves, we find that there are some who are dominant over others.
Right.
Biologically also, if you look at animal populations, you will notice you'll have the alpha male and so on. Tell
Yes.
me about that kind of structure amongst men.
I think there's always this feeling amongst men that they must try to outshine the others.
Yeah.
They must try to be superior. They must be better in some way, all right? And I think this creates unnecessary competition, and it removes any sort of unity and harmony amongst the men because of this competition, this need to prove to themselves or prove to the others that they are better. They could dress better, they could speak better, they could sing better, they could play an instrument better, right?
They could play sports better.
Play sports better, they are superior, they have broken a record. So I think this puts a certain pressure on the men, and it creates disunity amongst them. It creates friction amongst them. And I think this is something that we need to try to understand. Why are we so competitive? Why is there a need for us to have 6 cars in our garage? Why is there a need for us to have a big house or 2 houses or renting an next house?
Yeah.
Right? So there's always this need to prove to other men that they are wealthier, that they are better seen in society, a higher status.
Or in some cases have more girlfriends
More
and so on,
girlfriends,
more women.
Right?
Yes.
More outside women. So I don't know if it could be something evolutionary, right, where the male always try to do this to attract the females, right, but it is something that we need to try to correct, because often it is damaging to the men, damaging to the male, and especially if it deals with a vice, like drinking alcohol. They feel that they must drink more beers than the other men, or they must drink a certain type of beer to be amongst the elite in society. Right?
Yeah.
So I think this is what is creating problems in society. And one of the goals of International Men's Day is to see how we could help men who might be victims of vices.
Does it have to do with self-esteem then?
To a certain extent, it deals with self-esteem. If somebody who has low self-esteem, you would expect them to be easily attracted to vices or easily distracted, right?
Yes.
So we need to try to find out what are the causes for low self-esteem.
Well, later on in the program, when we are talking about socialization, perhaps we'll touch on that.
Yes.
But you know, a woman, I mean, while they say women tend to be critical of each other, but women really can establish lovely girl-girl relationships. You know, they chat with their friends, they do things with their friends and so on. What do men do?
I think men, they have their public spaces, and their public spaces, it might be going to the Oval to see a cricket game, it might be going to the stadium to see a football game or hockey, right? So they, at these sporting grounds, there is this public space where men would collaborate or would meet each other, sometimes at the beach.
In a bar for those who drink?
On a bar on evenings or Friday evening after work or so. So there is, they create their own public space where they would talk and things, but you would hardly ever find a man at home chatting with another man on the phone, right? They would usually tend to be somewhere. And
It
it's
would be more like business.
more
like,
business,
Yeah.
right? These Rotary, Kiwanis clubs,
Yes,
these are where men also convene to discuss issues.
And things like lodges and so on.
The lodges would be another
Yes.
area where, so they have their
Right.
areas,
I guess even at the church or the temple
or the mosque.
or the mosque, they may find a space there where they can talk.
Yeah, but of course that talk at these religious areas are limited.
It's confined to religious matters generally.
You can't talk politics and things, you know,
No.
it wouldn't be
Appropriate. Yeah, that's for sure. So the thing about it is the men show this competitiveness.
Yes.
They show, what about, they show aggression.
They show aggression because you see what,
They bully some men.
and it's in the secondary school too, eh?
Right, and I mean,
Primary
you know,
school.
I have had time in the education system,
Yes.
and we find a lot of times that the boys of, you know, say like Form 4 or even Form 5, they want to, they are not excelling in their academics, but they want to be the best bad boy.
Right.
And so they do everything under the sun to achieve some kind of attention. Tell me about bullying and aggression.
You see that bullying and aggression, it is linked to male underachievement. And this bullying and aggression, it is really to compensate for either a lack of knowledge or for ignorance. And a boy who bullies might be bullied by his father, an older brother at home, or uncle, right, or a grandfather, and he now becomes a bully in turn.
Yes.
So it's sometimes,
It's learned behavior.
yes, it's a way to, he needs an outlet. He needs a
Yes.
sort of revenge, right, because he is a victim of bullying. So he goes to school and he picks on somebody younger. But what
Or perceived to be weaker.
or perceived to be weaker. Now, what I've realized too is that within the school system, some students, especially the boys, they don't want to appear too bright, too intelligent.
Well, that's another enigma.
You know, they want to appear laid back. They want
cool.
to and cool. They
Yes.
don't want to be the nerd.
Yes.
They cannot appear effeminate in any way. So there is this aggression. It could be real or it could be a mask that they put on.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, will you believe some of these children are well behaved at home, you know?
Yes. So
You know?
yeah.
And it's often at school or when they're walking on the road, they are getting on as if they are gangster.
Oh, and once they have people looking on, that fuels
That
the whole
attention.
thing. That's the attention-getting thing.
Yeah.
And so the people who are looking on and saying, yes, hit him, kick him, or cuff him, or
Yeah.
something, they I don't know what achievement is happening there. What are they gaining from the process?
Right, right.
That they are goading these people to fight even more. And instead of moving away, if they move away, or tell them not to do that and move away, or don't approve of what they are doing, then of course it's like putting oxygen on a fire. The thing just
will burn more.
Burn more. But if you remove the oxygen,
will die.
The fire would die. You know. So in a lot of cases, the bullies get attention at school. They get attention, and the people around them who pretended they were not part of this thing, by goading them on,
the henchmen,
I tell you, they are aiding and abetting, you know. So aggression is one thing. You know, the effects of the male hormone, perhaps testosterone, may be responsible for, you know, that outward show of aggression. But when we talk about socialization in the next half, after our break, we will talk about that. So the men appear to be aggressive. They appear to be real macho, you know. I mean, and they compete with each other. And there are some men who are abusers. Apart from bullies now, we are talking about some men who are abusers. Tell us about that. Isn't it just a matter of power and control?
It is a matter of power and control, and it could be as a result of maybe improper parenting at home. It could be, you know, something might be mentally wrong with this man, right? Where he is just programmed, more or less programmed to abuse and destroy, right? So we need to look at also these issues. We also need to see if there could be some sort of intervention. Why didn't a counselor, why didn't a parent or a positive role model intervene early in this person's life to put this person back on the correct path?
That's where mentoring comes in.
Correct.
Not only from the parent, but from a responsible adult. They can mentor. And so let the person see what they are doing is not what should be happening, and in fact they should make a positive contribution to society rather than a negative one. So Dr. Teelucksingh, we'll take a short break, after which we'll continue. My dear viewers, we are streaming at ibntt.com, and our topic today is creating a space for men. Join us very soon after these short messages. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to The Right Fit. I'm your presenter, Sister Lydia Choate, and our topic today is creating a space for men. And chatting with me this day is Dr. Jerome Teelucksingh, history lecturer at the University of the West Indies. And he has been the main person in inaugurating International Men's Day, which is celebrated on November 19th. And before the program, I was reminding him that November 20th is Universal Children's Day. And of course, on the 25th of November is International Day Against Violence Against Women. So that we have a little cluster of days that affect the family. And he, in the first part, he mentioned what were the main pillars of this thrust. And he also says that, you know, that we have to work with the men and boys to help to reverse the way they think. You know, we want, when we think of a man, some people think about tall, dark, and handsome, especially women wanting to get married. And this is a sort of almost impossible thing, you know, to get. How many tall, dark, and handsome men are there? Then there are some who would look at, you know, at the film stars and say, oh, that is a man, you know, and they would like their husband to be like that and so on. But my dear folks, when you look at what is happening in films, that's in a virtual world. When we get down to brass tacks, however, when we talk about a man, we talk about a man who is caring and understanding, who is in control of himself, who is able to do things, lead people, perhaps head his household, and teach his children to become better people. And I notice this year's theme is working together for men and boys. And so we will shift our discussion now to the boys. Right. Tell us, Doctor, how do you think we have been doing a great job with our boys? Or if not, why not?
I feel that there's still a lot of work to be done. And this is evident when you notice the problems within our primary and secondary schools. I believe that what we need would be more counselors rather than these computers.
Okay.
You know, because what is the use you give them all these laptops and there are these problems amongst our boys? So what we need to do, we need more counselors. You cannot have a school with just one counselor or two counselors. You need to have more counselors to deal with the children that might have problems or potential troublemakers. And I think this is where we need to start. We need to have the counseling within the schools. We need to have welfare officers visiting homes to find out why maybe a boy might be missing classes or why he might be behaving badly at school. Right? So we need to also tackle the home. The home and school go hand in hand. And I think the society needs to understand that.
Right. Because we talk about parent-teacher associations.
Yes.
But we also have to remember the community in which the child lives, the context, the home.
Correct.
Not just parent, teacher, and school, but we also have to have the community involved as well.
Yes.
And when the child behaves in a certain way, it is reflecting what is happening in the home and what is happening in their community.
Yes.
And so that if you have interventions just for short periods at the school, most likely the effect will be reversed when they go back to the situation that is fueling this kind of behavior. Don't you think?
Yeah. I totally agree with you. You cannot have something positive occurring at the school and something negative occurring at the home. It will negate each other.
Always, yes.
Right? So what we need to do, we need the government to assist the homes, particularly in homes that might be at risk.
Yes, definitely. And it's so easy to know that because you have home teachers, you have deans who have an idea of what the child is going through.
Right.
And so these are the ones that they can spend a little more time on. But you know, in school, you'll find that as teachers, a lot of times you don't remember the ones who are behaving well, you know. You remember the ones who were not behaving well. So have they achieved their goal of getting attention in the long term and perpetuating it for a long time? Because you tend to remember very much those who misbehaved.
The bad ones.
The bad ones, yes. But you know, let us talk then about when this child is born. What is the role of the parents, especially where boys are concerned, in educating and training their boys? So what must they do with their boys? And you just had a baby, is a girl?
Yes.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Right. And I know you'll be a good father. Yes, God willing.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you. I feel that parents with baby boys, right, and young boys, they need to ensure that their boys understand what is right and wrong, what is bad and good. They also need to ensure that they are giving their boys the right toys to play with, the right games. Because a lot of times, a boy might hear that their friend has a violent video game. And they would ask their parent first, and their parent might not even know what the game is about.
Yes.
And they would just go in the store, give the child money, and the child buys this violent video game. So the parents need to monitor the video games that their children are playing. They need to monitor the television shows, the cable television shows. You cannot just put a boy in a room with a television on and leave him and give him the controls and say, stay quiet.
Yeah, or even before they can use the controls, just seeing what is going on and violent scenes are acted out.
A lot of these cartoons, and I don't mean the normal Simpson cartoons, but even the cartoons that are like maybe Tweety and Sylvester, right? These cartoons where you might see a cat getting hit or a bird getting hit, you know. It might be fun for us, you know.
Yes.
You know, we will understand that it's a cartoon and it's not reality. But a lot of these young boys growing up might feel that, this is a normal part of society.
Right, for sure.
Right, so I think we need to redefine the food that we are feeding our boys. And when I mean food, I mean the daily diet of television and cable.
And visual and audio.
Correct. Yes. Right? The music too. We need to monitor the music.
Yeah.
Right? The dancehall lyrics, the hip-hop, all these sometimes send coded messages. Right. Sometimes it's blatant messages. Right? So we need to monitor that. But I also want to touch, as I mentioned, food. We need to feed our boys healthy foods, because often the foods that are laden with preservatives and additives often might be creating an imbalance of hormones.
That's true. Very, very important.
Often these foods might make these children restless, might reduce their attention spans.
Right.
So we need to understand this. If a child is not paying attention in class or being aggressive, are we giving them soft drinks with a lot of sugar? Are we giving them carbohydrates, and we're not giving them balanced foods?
Right.
So I think we need to understand that to develop a healthy mind and a healthy child, we need to ensure that that child is fed a proper diet. Excellent
point. Excellent point. And what about the behaviors of the boys as they grow up? When they are toddler stage, they tend to be calm, I think, but by the time they reach age 4, around there, they start to become quite aggressive. It may be because of sibling rivalry or something, and they have to find their own space in the home, and get attention and so on. But you'll find around that time, I have found from, situations I know, where, these are the ones, apart from the terrible twos and pulling the tantrums and all of that, by age 4, they're very aggressive, they want to fight, and it's a normal thing for them. They want to fight. Boys are active, and boys, listen, they can't hear, from what I understand from the research, they don't hear soft tones so well. They hear louder tones.
Right.
And so they would shout, or they would respond to louder noises, so that when they go to preschool, if their female teacher is talking very softly and so on, the girls will respond, but the boys will be bored to death. How do they stay quiet? So even with our education system, we need more males in our system.
Right.
So that even when they go to primary school, the man has to show them how to be male, how to be a man. Apart from the fact that you have your XY chromosomes,
right.
That gives you maleness in the biological sense. But in terms of how to behave, they need to see a role model. Now, their father may not be the type of role model that would be the best. But certainly this must be reinforced by the teacher at school.
Correct.
How does a female teacher show a boy how to be a boy? Isn't that difficult?
It is very difficult. And you see, the only way that that could be rectified in some way is if that female teacher takes a course or reads about the development amongst young boys. So I'm not sure if the teachers in the early childhood care centers or the kindergartens, the preschools, if they have this knowledge. Because it is very easy to teach maths or spelling or sounds or phonics. But are they aware that, at this tender age, boys and girls have small differences that if they are not properly nurtured, they will become more aggressive. And this is where early intervention is important. Because sometimes at 12, 13 years, it might be too late. That boy might end up in YTC. Right? Or he might commit a crime. So I feel that the Ministry of Education and other relevant ministries need to ensure that the teachers who are teaching our young boys under 10 years are not just properly qualified, but are able to have a certain amount of psychology within their knowledge so that they will be able to assist this development.
And this thing at home, where we tell our boys don't cry, if they're hurt, don't cry. Does that develop the stoicism that we see in the men?
I think it does, because we often see crying as a form of weakness.
Yeah.
We see crying for the females, and the boys are not supposed to cry. They're supposed to feel pain. I think this is wrong. And I also think too that even some of the toys, like the guns, sometimes even these little figurines, right? The wrestling figurines or the G.I. Joes that we used to buy. When we give a boy a toy, that has a gun in it, or we give a child a gun, even a water gun, it sends a subliminal message to that boy.
Yes.
Yes.
Today
we give him a water gun. Next 10 years, he's going for a real gun.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we need to be very careful about what we give our children. You see, it's very, as you would know, during your time and my time, we played games like Scrabble, Monopoly, Ludo, chess, checkers. It's a whole different generation. They have their iPads, they have their Kindle, they have their laptops. So they are...
PlayStation.
Yes, they have PSI. They have all this access to different technology, new knowledge that we don't have, and we need to be careful. I'm not saying that we should suddenly restrict freedoms. That would be an abuse of democracy, but we need to monitor what these children are being exposed to.
And at this point, I want to mention about setting boundaries. Say like, all right, a father and son are playing on the floor in the family room, and they are fighting and so on, wrestling, play fight and thing. When does the child know when to stop? Because the same person may become a batterer later on, not having boundaries, not knowing when they are inflicting pain.
Right.
So how do we establish boundaries with our children? How do we tell them, how do we get it into their systems that this is not desirable? Because a touch can be gentle, or if you apply pressure, it causes pain.
Right.
So we have to set boundaries, And therefore the fathers, when they are role modeling for their boys, they have to know when to stop.
Yes, yes.
What do you think about that?
I think that's a very good point, and I think that by the tone of voice, a boy will know, he shouldn't do that.
Right.
So the father has to know, show a tone of voice or maybe a facial expression.
Right.
Your body language will send a message to that son, that I shouldn't be doing this. Daddy is in pain or mommy is in pain. It is causing hurt.
Right.
Right? And the parent needs to reinforce this ever so often. You cannot do it one day and expect it to stick in the boy's mind.
No, no, no. And especially even amongst themselves when they're playing with their siblings, or they are playing, say, like in school or something, they have to know that they must not deal with their problems by causing pain.
Correct, correct.
How do we tell them this? As you say, we need to reinforce it over and over and over. Because only with repetition would that learning become internalized.
Correct.
So I think a lot of times we don't set boundaries. So even our parenting styles are in question, I have a friend who wrote this lovely book. She was my guest, Listen to Your Sons, by Diane Wong Prasad. And she did this for MPhil in sociology at UWI. And she mentioned that she was dealing with 3 styles of parenting when she was talking to the sons about their fathers and so on. And of course you have the authoritarian kind of parent who will set the law there. There's no kind of warmth. What I say goes and so on. And you have, of course, the authoritative parent and then the permissive parent. The permissive parent will just buy anything you want, will not tell you yay or nay. You know what I mean? They're just there going along with it, setting no boundaries.
Spoil the children.
Spoil the children. Grandfathers tend to do that too.
I agree.
Yes, but that, of course, it means that the father would have had to establish proper values in the child's life, because the grandparent tends to spoil the child.
Yes,
but I don't know if it's spoil, but they show a lot of love and give a lot of attention to their grandchildren, because the parents may not have enough time to do that. Yes, but in the case of the authoritative parent, that is the one who will give warmth. That is the one who will set the boundaries. That is the one who will discuss with you what is happening. And that, we believe, is the best form, you know, of parenting.
I should also add to that, if we keep on rewarding our children with gifts for them to stay quiet or to gain their love, it could backfire.
Oh, yes.
And that child could become very materialistic.
Oh, yes.
And always believe that, you know, they could get what they want, if not from the father, from the grandfather or grandmother.
Very good point.
Or mother.
Yes.
So we need to be careful about the type of values we inculcate and enforce in our children.
Yes.
Because too often I have seen that parents would give these gifts to keep their children quiet. And they might not spend the time to read a book with that child or talk to that child. And the human voice, especially from the parents, is so very important for that child to understand. Because a lot of times, the communication skills are flawed amongst our younger generation.
But that is true. Again, they're living so much in a virtual world, so reality doesn't hit them at all, you know. But, you know, as you mentioned that, I was thinking that in the case of the parent who is absent, the father who's absent, but who will come and bring all these special gifts, does that make up for the time lost?
It will never make up. It will never make up, right? Because anybody could go into a store and get the gifts, but that, you see, the time that you spend with your child, it is invaluable. And I think that parents need to realize that even if they have to take an extra holiday, or even if they have to take a half day off from work to stay with their sick child, or maybe take a few days off, you know, it is very important. And that is why I admire the stay-home mothers.
Yes.
And in other countries, they have stay-home fathers who would actually take some time off while the child is young, you know, to stay with that child. And I think that society, we need to honor and we need to recognize a lot of these mothers in the past and the present who have not just taken the normal maternity leave, but they have taken extra leave. The fathers would take paternity leave, and we need to see that as a very important contributor to society. Too often, when we are judging productivity of a country, we looked at how much money somebody is earning.
But what about the hidden economy?
We need to look at that.
In terms of the woman and what she is providing in the home. If you had to pay for those services,
paying a maid, you're paying two maids.
I tell you, it's something else. So I want to ask you for your final comments in just a bit, but you know, I want to read from Diane's book again, Fathers, Listen to Your Sons, and these are available at major bookstores, these books. And not only Diane told me this poem, but I had Zobida Ragbir sing when she was talking to me about I think it was diabetes or being a health visitor. And she read this by Diane Lumans, and it says, if I had my child to raise over again. So it goes like this. If I had my child to raise over again, I'd build self-esteem first and the house after. I'd finger paint more and point the finger less. I would do less correcting and more connecting. I'd take my eyes off my watch and watch with my eyes. I would care to know less and know to care more. I'd take more hikes and fly more kites. I'd stop playing serious and seriously play. I would run through more fields and gaze at more stars. I'd do more hugging and less tugging. I would be firm less often and affirm much more. I'd model less about the love of power and more about the power of love. Very profound.
Very powerful.
Your closing comments?
Yes. I just want to add that that poem has so much meaning, and I would like young parents, I would like older parents to try not to have any regrets.
Yes, and your children are young only ones?
They're only young ones, right? We only have one life to live, right? And I would like parents to take a more serious role, because a lot of times when we see problems in society, it's simply because there is something wrong at the home. I also want the schools to realize that the schools are not a breeding ground for criminals. We need to stop making our schools this destructive space. And I think that what men need to do, men also need to play an active role in society to try to rectify some of these problems. Men need to see how they could help other men who might be maybe blinded by vices, right? So we cannot just condemn a man and say, well, he's an alcoholic, he's a smoker, right? He is caught up in just wasting time, an idler on the block. We need to see how we could help our men, how men could help other men. And once men are able to unite amongst themselves, gender relations will improve. They will be able to help the women,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And a society is not just based on men or just not based on women, it's based on both men and women.
Definitely. Well, I thank you very much, Dr. Jerome. Thank you for being my guest once more. You were my guest last year.
Correct.
And God willing, you'll be my guest again. I thank you so much. And I really believe that we have to pay attention to our men. We cannot live without the men. The men are most important in our society, like every other member of society. They are important. They need their space. But they must recognize that they need to come together and discuss their issues and give support to each other. And now as I close, I want to talk about something completely different. And that is, how do you deal with matches when you, in these very cold days we are having, and you try to light the stove with the matches, and the matches are cold and they break up and you can't get the stove going? I would like to give a little tip. Store your matches in an airtight container. Then your matches, the matchbox will be nice and crisp, and you can strike the side of the matchbox, and so you can get your fires going, right? So that was just a little rainy day tip. So my dear viewers, thank you for once more looking at the right fit. You can contact me using my Gmail account, lydiachot@gmail.com. And you can give comments and, of course, suggestions. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. And I pray to God that He'll ease the sufferings of all those who are undergoing strain because of the flood waters and other problems like that arising from the many days of rainfall. And also those who are sick and ailing. We ask God to help them in a special way, to help them to feel better. All those who are bereaved, to comfort them. So until next week, inshallah, assalamu alaikum. May the peace of God be with you, and look at the rerun on Tuesday at 9 p.m. Thank you, crew.